In today's session, guys, I'm going to help you to plan out your studies in a way that it is more effective and more exam centric, so that you can better utilize your time in the lead up to the exam. ඔගල exam එකට තව කෙටි කාලයක් නේ තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට මේ කෙටි කාලය ඇතුළත අපි කොහොමද හොඳට exam එකට මුහුණ දෙන්න practice කරන්නේ. So I'm going to give you some sort of an insight based on today's session, right? So I will start things off. I will go to the presentation mode, right? So I hope everyone can see my screen, right? So before we start, guys, if you see any question or you have any doubt, just use the chat option in this video, and I will attend to those towards the end of the session, right? So whatever the things you want to inquire, you can just dump it into the chat, and I will just run through it towards the very end, right? I will give you time to have a Q&A session, okay? Right. So we will start off with the objectives of today's session, right? So the first thing that we are going to discuss is understanding the paper structure, right? So you may or may not be very familiar with the paper structure. So I will just give you a very brief about how the paper has been structured, right? Then I'm going to give you a comprehensive past paper analysis starting from 2021, right? So this would cover 7 of the most recent past papers and how the examiner has developed the questions based on your syllabus topics, right? So this is important for us to sort of gauge or expect or anticipate what sort of questions the examiner might test in your exam, right? Then you have the question discussion. So based on these target areas, I'm going to give you some target questions that you can practice, right? Which will definitely help you in the examination context where you can see where we can see how things have been progressing, right? So with that being said, you can refresh your knowledge, and also you can identify your weak areas based on today's question discussion, right? If there's any topic that you are not very familiar with, at least you can just identify that and revisit your studies just for that section, right? Okay, then we have the question and answer session, Q&A. This is where I will take up all the questions that you guys might be having, right? So first off, we will go to the paper structure, right? So there are 3 sections, guys. So starting off with section A, you have the objective type questions, right? MCQs. You might be familiar with this word, right? So you have approximately 15 questions there with a total of 40 marks, right? So make a MCQ and not pull on objective type, OTQ and not pull on. That means there will be a short question which the examiner might ask you to come up with the correct answer, right? The specific answer or multiple choices. The examiner can give you like A, B, C, D, like 4 options where you can pick the correct answer, right? So this is section A, which will give you 40 marks. Then you have section B. These are the writing questions part of it, right? There would be 4 questions here, 10 marks each, and there would be 40 marks for that, right? Then you will have section C. This is also writing questions. There would be 1 question and it will be for 20 marks, right? Okay. So this is how the paper would be structured, right? So overall, if you take the tally here, right, you will have 40 plus 40 plus 20. Of course, that will make up your 100 marks, right? So as everyone would know, there's this saying, right? If you want to reach the moon, you will have to shoot for the stars, right? So in this case, if you are going for a pass, you should try to go for the full marks, right? Maybe you will end up with the A pass in that case, right? So if you're targeting to just get 50 marks, it's for passing, you are at a risk, right? So you have to target for 70. Always target a little beyond what you are expecting as the outcome, right? So in this case also, you should practice your questions in a way that you are going to secure the marks. Bare minimum would be the passing, right? So But you guys, of course, based on the knowledge that you have with the prep that you are going to have, the structured preparation, I don't think there will be a concern in passing the exam, right? So more to that, I will get to when I'm discussing the past paper analysis, how you can really gauge what they are going to check, right? So overall, guys, one thing I want to clarify before we start the past paper discussion, uh, it is the fact that I am going to do the past paper analysis for section B and section C, right? These are the writing sections, right? So that means predictions wise, we can safely secure around 60 marks from this particular analysis. Of course, I cannot forecast or predict the how the objective type or MCQ questions will be tested. It can be from any corner of your syllabus, right? It can be literally anything, right? As long as it is within the syllabus, you can develop MCQ from that. But it's not the case with section B and C, right? Under section B and C, you can really see a very strong pattern where you can identify what are the types the examiner or what are the key areas the examiner likes to check, right? So today's session, we're going to focus more on section B and C, right? Okay, so now we have a rough idea of how the paper is being structured, right? So now we are coming to the past paper analysis of this, right? So past paper analysis, guys, as I briefed you previously, I'm going to take 7 of the most recent past papers starting from Jan 2021, right? So we have the past paper for January 2021, July 2021, January, July for 2022, 2023, and also your most recent past paper, January 2024, right? So based on this, what are the common areas the examiner is testing, right? So this is a very simple analysis, and you would see the result in the next slide. Right. So this is the summary, right? I know it's a bit messy or chaotic. There's a lot of information. So I will just guide you through so you can dissect this clearly, right? So here, guys, the syllabus areas are the key contents of your syllabus, right? As you know, there are 7 modules. This is how we have structured our e-learning packs as well, right? So for each key area, what are the questions that are being tested? So you have it side by side, right? So for example, if you read this clearly, basic mathematics for business, that's your first topic, right? Basic mathematics for business for this particular topic, it's always in question number 2, right? In your exam paper, it would be the writing question number 2 always, right? So usually you can get around 10 marks in this case, right? And the second question, or sorry, the second area is financial mathematics for business. Financial mathematics for business. What is this topic? So financial mathematics for business is the topic where you did the interest computations, right? So you remember simple interest, compound interest, loan amortization, then things like project appraisal, net present value. Yeah, that topic is financial mathematics for business, right? So you will always see this in question number 6, right? It can have a varying degree of marks. It could be something from 8 to 14 in a worst case scenario, right? So you will see in on average again 10 marks from financial mathematics for business, right? So in your most recent past paper, of course, they doubled down on it. They gave you, they allocated 13 marks under financial mathematics for business, right? Okay, then the third topic is financial operative measures for business. What is this topic? Financial operative measures. Can you recall? Financial operative measures, Buddha, those are the sections where we computed the total revenue, then you have total cost, total profit, then the marginal functions, break-even point, profit maximization. Can you remember that that particular section? Okay, that is the financial operative measures for business topic, right? So always it would be under question number 3, right? Always question number 3. And for how many marks? 10 marks, right? That's how it will be in your paper also, right? In your July or August 2024 paper, if you take the third question, it would be most definitely from financial operative measures for business, right? Then comes data representation and descriptive measures, right? Usually this is under question number 5, right? And there would be around 10 marks, 10 to 12, something like around those numbers, right? What is data representation and descriptive measures? Can you remember a topic where we computed the mean, median, mode, standard deviation? Yeah, that is the data presentation and descriptive measures topic, right? So from that particular topic, there would be again around 10 marks, right? Then comparing to quantitative variables, very structured, right? Question number 4 will be where they will test this. And for almost all the time, it would be for 10 marks, right? Then probability. Again, in question number 6, you will see probability questions, right? For around 10, 12, or maybe lesser, right? In some cases, it is just 6 marks, right? You see here, right? And on your most recent past paper, there were 7 marks allocated to probability and its applications under the question number 6, right? And lastly, the index numbers and forecasting topic. Make this doesn't get the more how do I say, the appreciation from the examiner, right? Even though there are many things that they can test under index numbers and forecasting, usually it doesn't get as much attention by the examiner like the other topics. In the other topics, always you will have the questions very in a structured manner, but index numbers, it's a hit or a miss, right? So in your most recent past papers, the 7 past papers, you would see this under question number 6 or question number 2, and these were for very small amount of marks, right? And in the most recent past paper, as you can see here, there was nothing tested under English numbers and forecasting. At least in part B, in the writing questions, there was nothing under index numbers and forecasting, right? Okay, so this is a very high level analysis, right? You might be thinking, sir, what column but you can prepare this on your own, right? But the good news is, even from analysis like this, we can narrow it down to the specific question also, right? So that's what we are going to do today, right? So if you take, for example, basic mathematics for business, if you watch our video or followed any sort of class at this point, right? You would see there are so many different things you learn under basic mathematics, right? The broad-based theory, then numbering systems, right? Then you will have equation types, the simple equations, simultaneous equations, right? Progressions, how to do the product pricing, markup, margins, VAT, profit percentiles, right? Discounts. So there are so many things that are there in one of these topics, if you take as an example, right? But guys, even though there is a lot of stuff, examiner is always asking the same things, right? So if you analyze this very carefully, you can actually safely guess what are the things the examiner will test under this particular topic. Okay. So that is what I'm going to do today, right? I'm going to narrow down each of these syllabus areas for you to focus on certain specific concepts under the syllabus areas, right? So to give you some confidence, right? Then make a current you may be having some sort of a doubt, right? So to give you some confidence, in the next slide, I will show you our forecast and what transpired in the January 2024 exam. Then අපි මේ වගේ session එකක් පුතා we did back in January again, right? Before the examinations, right? So we did this analysis and we projected it to the students and get them prepped, right? So I will show you what we targeted and what had happened, right? So for example, you see on the screen now, right? You have basic mathematics for business. The pointers that you see here in black text under basic mathematics, these are the stuff I asked the guys to be prepared for, right? The bold text, you see bullet number 2, 3, and 4. These are the ones the examiner tested, right? And in purple, you will see how many marks you could have obtained, right? Like for example, under basic mathematics for business, if you targeted and be prepared for these 3 things. What are these 3? Simultaneous equations, product pricing, and progressions. If you knew these concepts, you could have secured 10 marks safely. Okay. Then financial mathematics for business, right? Under financial mathematics for business, Buddha, you have so many concepts again, right? Simple interest, compound interest, loan amortization, percent values, right? Internal rate of return, all that, right? So out of all this, the examiner tested these three items, which we discussed in the previous exam prep session, right? So I give examples how to do the loan installment computation, amortization schedule, right? And the net present value. These are the same stuff they asked, right? So they gave us 13 marks. You could have got all 13 marks based on our analysis, right? Similarly, financial operative measures for business. What the examiner tested was TR. What is TR? Total revenue, right? Mulu Adayam, total revenue function. Then they tested MC. MC stands for marginal cost, right? And the examiner asked you to compute the break-even point, BEP, right? So from these three items, you could have gotten all the marks, right? Data representation and descriptive measures. For the data representation and descriptive measures, the crux of the topic is computation of what? Measures of central tendency and the measures of dispersion. There are certain types of calculations you can do in this particular topic, right? What are the key things? Mean, median, and mode. Then you have variance and the standard deviation. In addition to that, you have the coefficient of variation as well, right? And some ways to represent certain items in the in charts, right? So we targeted these stuff, right? So what did the examiner ask you to compute in the last exam? It was mean, mode, and the standard deviation. ඔය තුන තමයි compute කරන්න ඇහුවේ, right? How many marks? 10 marks, as it is, right? Then comparing to quantitative variables. Uda, comparing to quantitative variables, you have multitude of subtopics as usual, right? But guaranteed in your exam, what are they going to check under part 2 for 10 marks? It's almost always least square regression line and how to do a forecast based on the least square regression line, right? We did example in the exam prep session and same thing. There was a question in the paper as well, right? So if you was familiar with how to develop this regression line, 10 marks again, right? Probability and its applications, right? So for probability and its applications, Kuta, there are three things I wanted the guys who did the exam last time to prepare. What are the three? Laws of probability, expected value, and the standard normal curve. Right? What did they ask? Laws of probability, standard normal curve. You could have got all the marks here as well. So, guys, if you targeted your studies along these subtopics, you could have gotten the full marks in the last exam, which was a very good success for us in terms of predictions, right? So this slide. It's not to just show out and just to say I'm the best guys. I can predict the future. No, it's not that, right? This is based on a very methodical analysis of the past scenario, right? We analyze the past papers and we can come up with something like this. It's pretty easy if you really look for what the examiner has been checking as a pattern, right? So remember, guys, the stuff that we are going to discuss today will be there in your exam paper, right? So even if you cannot study the full syllabus at this point, which is nearly impossible now, right? You only have like a month and a half to go, right? So we should not be, or maybe just 1 month, we should not be focusing to cover the full syllabus, right? That ship has sailed, right? දැන් ඒක කරන්න වෙලාවක් නැහැ. You are not going to study only maths, right? There are other subjects that you have to study for as well, right? So I'm reiterating, focus on this stuff that I'm going to list out today and align your studies and make sure you know these stuff. Forget about the rest of the stuff. This is the bare minimum you should know. And that is good enough for you in your exam context, right? So that's the assurance that I'm going to give you guys. Okay. So I think you guys are clear and you guys get some sort of a background as to what we are going to do, right? Okay. So now I'm going to do this analysis and I'm going to show you what are the things you need to look out for each topic under your syllabus, right? Starting off with the syllabus area is business mathematics for business, right? The basic mathematics for business, right? So for this Buddha, what are the common areas the examiner is going to check? Simple equations, right? Then simultaneous equations, product pricing, how the margins and the markups are prepared, progressions, arithmetic and geometric, ratios, and fractions and percentages, right? So these are the stuff you should be very familiar with when you're going for the exam, right? So today, Buddha, when in our target question discussion, I'm going to do a simultaneous equation question, right? This is based on the most recent past paper, just to refresh your memory, right? So what are you supposed to do with this information? දැන් ඔයා බලන මේ video එක නැත්නම් live session එකේ what is the objective of this slide? Note it down, right? And make sure you know this stuff, right? If by chance you cannot remember any of these concepts, please go back to your videos or your respective study material and make sure your knowledge is refreshed for these points at least. Okay, right. So if you are savvy with these particular sections, you can get approximately 10 marks in your second pair, right? The second section, the writing section in your paper. Okay, so this is for basic maths. All right. So, guys, no need to really struggle to take down a lot of notes at this point. I'm going to move to the next slides. This presentation that I'm going to show you, the analysis, I will make it available for all of you guys. You can just refer to it at your convenience, right? Okay. So this is for basic mathematics for business. Then with the financial mathematics for business, right? What are the common areas they are going to check? Loan amortization calculation, the amortization schedule, net present value, simple and compound interest formulas. May set එක හොඳට දැනගෙන ඉන්න ඕන, right? What is loan installment calculation? That is Putha. If you go to a bank today and ask for a loan of, let's say, 1 million rupees, right? I need a personal loan of 1 million, right? Then the bank would know the interest rate, right? And also the bank would ask you over how many years are you going to repay it? කොච්චර කාලයක්ද වගේ loan tenor එක වගේ වාරික කොච්චරක් වා ගෙවන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා, right? Once he has this information, the guy sitting at the counter, he would be able to compute the monthly installment, right? ආසවා මාසෙකට 35000 ගාන ගෙවාගෙන යන්න ඕනේ. මෙච්චර වාරික ප්‍රමාණය. He does some math, right? Based on that information, the loan value, the interest rate, and the tenor, the number of installments, he can do that math, right? That math you should know how to compute the installment value, right? We are going to do an example, not to worry. I will remind you how to do that, right? Then what is this amortization schedule? The second bullet point, this one. Amortization schedule is Putha. Based on this installment value, you can prepare a schedule which shows the outstanding value of a loan over its tenor, right? Let's say, for example, if you take a 1 million loan for 5 years and prepare an amortization schedule for this particular loan, it will show you how your loan balance is behaving, right? That means at the beginning, your loan value will be 1 million, right? Or got the loan 1 million, fine. After the end of the first year, your loan value would be lesser than that, of course. Why? Because you are making some repayment, right? Loan balance right? So what happens at the end? Loan balance is zero, right? Once you settle the loan, your outstanding loan balance will be zero, right? You don't owe anything to the bank from there onwards, right? So this schedule, this table is what amortization schedule means, right? This was tested in the last exam as it is, right? As a concept, we learned this in the class with examples. They check the same thing, right? Nothing different. Okay. Then Buddha, what is NPV? You would know what NPV is, of course, right? NPV is Buddha. It's a way to appraise a project, right? Under project appraisal, what are the key project appraisal techniques that we learn? We have the payback, right? Net present value. You have the internal rate of return. And it used to have ARR, accounting rate of return. Likewise, there are many other ways. In your higher studies, after you complete your AAT, when you are going for, let's say, CMA ACCA or chartered for that matter, you will learn many other techniques to appraise projects, right? Beyond NPV, like XIRR, modified a modified IRR, MIRR, right? Discounted paybacks, right? Then you will learn a lot of things, right? So out of all these things, what is the examiner's key concern? Your key concern should be with NPV, not other things, right? Doesn't mean that the other stuff are not important or they cannot check it, right? There's always a possibility. But if you look at the history, it's always NPV. හැම වෙලේම අහන්න NPV ගැන. ඉතින් එහෙනම් අපිත් මොකද ගන්නවා? We should know how to compute NPV. Simple as that, right? It's very easy. If you watch the video and if you are savvy with your learning material, you can really easily compute NPV for the questions that they ask. Okay. So remember, if you cannot figure out or can't recall what the hell NPV means, you have to go back to your videos again, right? That's my advice. Then comes simple and compound interest formulas, right? What are these simple and compound interest formulas? Right? වයසක මිනිස්සුනේ මතක දන්න අපේ formulas ටික, right? How to compute simple interest and how to compute compound interest, right? There were two formulas each for this. One was to compute the interest proportion, compute the interest, and also compute the maturity value, right? Then also similarly, under compound interest, we learn how to compute the interest proportion. From the interest rate compute karani compound method better, and also how to compute the maturity value, right? So what is the difference between interest and maturity value, Gupta? Let's take a very simple example to recall what it is. වාද රුපියල් 1000ක් ගෙනහිල්ලා bank එකක deposit කරොත්. If you deposit 1000 rupees in a bank today, right? At 10% interest for a year. After 1 year, how much of interest would you be getting? Let's say under simple interest, it's just 100 rupees, right? කොහොමද මේ 1000 කියන එක multiply කරොත් 10% වලින් ඔයාට මේ 100 කියන එක figure එක ගන්න පුළුවන්, right? That is your earning, right? So, are you going to come back home with this 100 bucks? Or then 1000 invest කරලා after 1 year. After 1 year, you go to the bank and you say, hi, I'm here to get my money back. The bank will give you 100 bucks as the interest. Then would you say, see you guys. Thank you guys. Have a good day. You come back home with how much? You come back home with your initial investment plus your initial investment plus your interest. Right? So guys, the difference between interest and the maturity value is exactly this, right? එතකොට මේ 100ට තමයි පුතේ අපි කියන්නේ interest කියලා. මේක තමයි ඔගේ ආදායම. This is your income for investing in this bank, right? deposit එකක් කරපු නිසා ඔයාලට ලැබෙන return එක තමයි 100 කියන්නේ. This 1100, it is the accumulation of your initial investment and what you earn. The interest is what you call the maturity value, right? So එතකොට ඕනම interest scenario එක, let it be simple interest or compound interest, you should be able to compute both these components, right? There are formulas for all these, right? මේක compute formulas you learn in the class, and also remember these formulas are given to you in the exam also, right? If you look at your past papers, at the very bottom of it, you will see a formula sheet, right? So go to one of formulas, I would say around 90% of the formulas that you need would be in that piece of paper. So you don't need to even by heart this stuff, right? If you know where the formula is, it's just a matter of copying it down from the paper itself. Paper again, antima video, right? So that's it, right? You should know how to just assign the numbers and take the answer. It's simple as that, right? Then the next thing is simple and compound interest formula. Sorry, we discussed that. Okay, so based on this, how much marks you can get? You can get around 14 marks based on this, right? So today in our exam, the target question discussions, we are going to discuss about the loan installment calculation, one example, and also I'm going to do the past paper question and show you how to work out the numbers for that, right? Okay. Next up, we have the financial operative measures for business, right? What are the common areas that are being tested? The total functions, marginal functions, profit maximization, and the break-even point, right? So what are total functions, Pudha? Total functions are three key functions a business can derive based on their operations, right? What is TR? No, I will remind you. What is TR here? TR is total revenue, right? Revenue. Revenue. TC is for total cost, right? TP stands for total profit. Okay. Then after you derive the total functions, you can convert them to marginal functions using something called differentiation, right? I will remind you all this stuff later on, but you should be knowing this stuff by now, right? Once you develop these TR, TC, and TP, you can convert them to MR, MC, and MP. What is MR? Marginal revenue. Marginal revenue. This is marginal cost, and this is marginal profit, right? So I do not compute karana then no, right? And after all this, there are two other concepts that are very critical. Those two are profit maximization and break-even point, right? What is the difference? මොකක්ද ඔය දෙකේ difference එක? Profit maximization and break-even. The break-even point is the situation where your business is not earning any profit, right? So for example, let's say our business setup pattern, you are going to start a business, right? You are selling slippers, right? Or setup pattern, right? You manufacture the thing and you are selling slippers, right? Because you are angry with AAT and with me, you are going to name your brand as AAT, right? AAT slippers. Very okay, very aggressive naming convention. Okay, so you are selling AAT slippers, and let's say per month you are making 50,000 rupees. රුපියල් 50,000ක income එකක් ලබන. That's your income, right? Let's say, on the other hand, to produce all these slippers that you have sold, you spend, let's say, 50,000 rupees again, right? So your inflow of cash is how much? 50,000. And on the other hand, your outflow, your cost, same, 50,000. If you are in this situation, do you make any profit? What there's no profit, right? Whatever you earn as 50K goes out as 50K from the other end, right? You are left with nothing, right? Your net position will be zero, right? So this is the situation we define as what? Break-even point, right? Okay. So this is no profit, no loss situation. That should be clear to you, right? Then on the other hand, what is profit maximization? Profit maximization is not break-even. It means the maximum profit that you can make as a business, right? So in a business, you can compute and see වගේ ලාභය උපරිම වෙන නැත්නම් වගේ profit එක maximize වෙන scenario එක මොකක්ද කියලා based on maths, of course, right? So these are two distinct concepts. So in the exam, under this particular question number 3, you will always find either profit maximization or break-even point, right? It's one after the other, right? So for example, let's say they check profit maximization this time, and the next time it would be break-even. Vice versa, right? You can't go beyond this. There are only two options. Either it's profit maximization or break even, right? So if you guys are familiar with the computation, it's just a matter of assigning the new numbers from the exam question, right? The concept remains the same, okay? So if you are savvy with this stuff, if you are knowledgeable, you can get 10 marks from here as well, right? So focus your studies on these four bullet points, okay? Right. Then comes the data representation and descriptive measures. Similarly, what are the common areas that are being tested? It's a very simple definition we can come to or a conclusion. Always, Buddha, they will ask you, they will check these three, mean, mode, and media. Then you will have standard deviation and coefficient of variation, right? And also, they have a tendency to check the pie chart. I don't know why they are more focused on the pie chart. But from what I have seen, they are more inclined to check the pie chart because there are some computation that is involved in a pie chart, right? When you are doing the slicing of the pie chart, right? So, in summary, Buddha, there are two types of computations under this particular topic: data representation and descriptive measures. Well, there are two types of computations you can do. First one is measures of central tendency, right? What are those? Mean, mode, and media. Measures of central tendency, right? You should know this stuff, right? Then on the other hand, there's a different type of computation, set of computations you can do. Those are called measures of dispersion. Okay. So the measures of dispersion, what are the computations that you can do under this category? You can compute the variance, then, variance, then the standard deviation, and also coefficient of variation, right? So these three stuff you can compute, okay? So there are 6 computations you should know how to compute, right? I will refresh your memory. I will revise it based on example question. So you should be very familiar with these 6 items, okay? Right. Then the pie chart thing, okay. You might remember in our class, you might have seen how we design or came up with various type of charts, right? So you have what? You have things called bar chart, right? Then you have component bar chart, right? Then you have percentage component bar chart, right? Then you have the pie chart, right? Then you have the frequency polygons, right? Likewise, there are many ways you can represent data, right, in a chart. So out of all these stuff, what is the mandatory chart you should know for the exam context? It would be the pie chart, right? Charts ඔක්කොම බලුවේ නැති වුණත් කමන්නේ pie chart එක හදන විදිය බලාගෙන යන්න. That's the advice I can give you. Okay, right. So all things considered, Buddha, if you are savvy with these basic things, you can get up to 14 marks. This is a very significant number, by the way. 14 marks, it can determine whether you are passing or failing, right? So make sure you are knowledgeable with these topics at least, under this topic, okay? Then, the past paper analysis for comparing to quantitative variables. Again, a very standardized question in your exam, right? There are only 2 things here you should watch out for, right? Developing the least square regression line, that is y equals a plus bx. And based on this regression line, how to do the forecast. These are the only 2 things, right? So just to give you a very rough reminder what this is. So if you have your chart, the x plane and the y plane, right? When you mark your coordinates like this, the behavior of the 2 variables, right? You can develop a straight line which goes crossing off all these points or going as close as these points, right? You can develop a line. You can call it an arbitrary line, right? Based on all these dots, right? So this line is Buddha, what we call as the regression line. Make it again a fancy term, regression line here, right? Okay. So to develop this regression line, there's a technique called the least square method. Least square method, right? This is what they will always test. In any exam paper, you would see they testing the least square method for developing the regression line, right? So 99% sure in your exam as well, they will ask you to develop the least square regression line, right? So we will prepare. We will do an example and I will remind you how this is being done, okay? Then once you develop this arbitrary line, you should be able to do a forecast based on that as well, right? So I will remind you the technique of doing that as well based on a sample question, right? So you can refresh your memory in this case, right? So may they go because it's like guaranteed marks. You can get 10 marks in your exam for sure, right? So you can just now think, right? So like based on your knowledge that you have right now, you can safely assume this much marks I have secured already, right? Let's say, for example, a technique if you know y equals a plus bx b square regression method, you already have secured those marks, right? Safe to say. Then after 1 month also you would be able to do it, right? Without a hassle. Right? So let's practice these two stuff specifically. Yeah. Okay, then one before the last, that is probability and its applications. Right. Probability topic here is a vast topic, and this is one of the areas the examiner sees a weakness of our students. අපේ students ලගේ පුතා weakness එකක් තියෙනවා මේ topic එකේ, right? That is that our guys can't compute probability, so for whatever the reason, right? Probability question guys are super confused, right? So this is one of the weaker areas in terms of scoring of the students, right? So if you take like a chart, how many marks the students have obtained for a probability question specifically, right? There are so many zeros. You will see a big spike at zero, right? And it goes down slowly, right? So our guys are not very confident in probability topic for whatever the reason, right? Anyways, the examiner tests this, and he is very interested in checking these three stuff, right? So these are the things you should know as bread and butter. Huh? What are the three things? Laws of probability, additive and multiplicative, okay? The expected value computation, EV, okay? And the standard normal curve, right? So today I'm going to just remind you a basic law of probability, a simple probability computation based on January 2024 past paper, right? So they didn't even get to details last time. Kalimpara paper ke, they tested something very basic. Not even, you can't even say that's like a complicated probability question, right? You would see it when we are doing the paper, the target questions, right? They are checking easy stuff. They are not going to go into crazy details, right? So just be confident based on our computations and the study material. Okay, so we will refresh our memory on this. How many marks? Up to 12 marks, right? So this is also a key area you can target. Okay, and lastly, this is the least important area in terms of forecasting for part B and C, right? That is the index numbers and forecasting, right? So on the index numbers and forecasting, we have a big syllabus content, but for whatever the reason, they do not seem to be interested to check it in a greater detail, right? So make a past papers, out of 7, they have tested it only 2 times, right? How unfortunate. But safe to say, when they are testing this, at least we know what are the most specific things that they are asking for. They want you to focus on these two: Las Vegas price index and Las Vegas quantity index, right? And also you have to add to this past price index and past quantity index. Past quantity index, right? So these are the indexes that they are, how to say, more inclined to check. Like අහන්න target කරන්න පුළුවන් indexes අතර තමයි මේ තියෙන්නේ, right? Las Vegas price index, Las Vegas quantity index, past price index and past quantity index, right? So these are the main index numbers. What do you mean by main index numbers? Our index numbers are big. Of course, right? How many did we study? In the class, we discussed about 14 different index numbers, right? So you have the simple price index, SPI, then you have the aggregate price indexes, right? Weighted aggregate price indexes, right? Then you have the past price index, Las Vegas price index, right? Likewise, we learn many categories, right? And based on various variables, price index, quantity index, and value index. We did a lot of computations, right? So maybe you cannot study all 14 at this point, but at least, please, if they check it, this would be a hot topic for them. Okay. Right. If they were to check it, you can get around 4 marks from here, right? So for this also, guys, I will do an example question so you can recall what we had discussed in the class. Okay. So Buddha, this is the crux of the target areas that you need to remember for your exams. Huh? So guys, please make sure you know this stuff and you can get through your exam very easily, right? Don't scatter your studying efforts. What I mean by that is, like, for example, this is your first time doing a professional exam, right? It's a fast paced, how do I say, examination setup because we have to get ready for the exam every 6 months, right? So, for example, O levels, we study for how many years? Or like so many years. But grade 10 and 11, at least 2 years, you have time to get prepared. 2 whole years, huh? Then A levels, how many years do you have? Again, 2 years, right? Grade 12 and grade 13, we study the full thing for almost 2 years, right? And then only we sit for the exam. But your professional exams are much more fast paced, right? 6 months, you have big syllabus, you cover it, and use it for the exam. Quickly, you should be able to adapt to this, right? So be smart, right? For example, if you know how to compute these index numbers, right, you should not be wasting a lot of time again studying the same thing, right? What other make a පුළුවන් නම් තව මාසෙකිනුත් මේක වාට පුළුවන්. Safe to say that, right? So focus your studies on the stuff you don't remember, right? Not to re-emphasize on the stuff if you are that you are already competent with, right? Okay, දන්න දේවල් ටික now secured, right? It's stored in your hard drive now, in your brain. So try to target the things that you cannot remember or cannot recall from your studies, right? Just these key items are not everything. Okay. So now all these things considered, now I think you have a narrowed scope to in terms of targeting your studies for all these topics. Okay. So I hope this would be helpful for you to assign priorities when you are studying for your exam, right? So now, as promised, let's go for some target questions, right? So these target questions, Buddha, I'm going to solve them then and there. You can also take a piece of paper or book and you can attempt these questions while I'm doing it because you have covered all this stuff in your vLearning packs and also maybe on your previous studies. Okay. So you can also attempt it and see whether you can recall these stuff, right? This is just a very open session, right? So let's move ahead. And this slide, guys, you will see the target questions that we are going to discuss. So today I have selected 8 questions. Huh? So my questions are to discuss karanne, right? So for example, basic mathematics what I'm going to discuss is a simultaneous equation question. This is directly from your past paper. So I will show you how to work that out. Then financial mathematics for business, I selected 2 questions for discussion. One is to calculate the loan installment value and also a different type of or different mechanism or reordering of this question where you do the reverse calculation of the loan value, right? Then සාමාන්‍යයෙන් කරන්නේ පුතා loan value එක දැනගෙන installment එක හදන්න. That's the flow you follow, right? Loan value එක ඔයා determine කරනවා, based on that you compute your installment, repayment එක, right? But in certain questions they can ask what a repayment එක දීලා they might ask to compute the loan value, the backward calculation, right? So we are going to do one such exam, how to calculate it backwards also, okay? So then for financial operative measures for business, we are going to discuss a break-even point question. This is also Jan 2024 past paper. I will just remind you the mechanics of solving that question, okay? Then data representation and descriptive measures. I'm going to refresh your memory in computing the mode, mean mode and the media based on example data set, right? Comparing to quantitative variables, මේකදී අපි discuss කරන්නේ the hot topic as always, the least square regression line. How to develop this? I'm going to do an example for this. And for probability and its applications, I'm going to do a simple probability question, which they tested in Jan 2024. I will also explain how to work it out. And lastly, index numbers and forecasting. Well, I have selected a question for cash price index. So if they are going to check index numbers, this is one of the key indexes that they can test the cash price index. Okay. So I think the structure is clear. You are going to do all these questions with me. and we will just refresh our memory. All right. So without any further delay, we'll start things off. All right. Right. So the first question. The first question is a simultaneous equation question. Okay, guys. So this is directly from your past paper. You will see the same thing in Jan 2024, right? So let's read it. Anura purchased 61 shares from company A and 80 shares from company B. Okay. And at a total cost of 7,042 rupees, right? Vasana purchased 61 shares from company A and 14 shares from company B at a total cost of 3,346, right? So you are required to calculate the cost price of share of each company. Okay. So guys, even though I have marked this as simultaneous equation, when you read this question, it does not tell you that you are supposed to solve it with simultaneous equation. That should be your skill. What I'm trying to say is, මේ question එකේ කොහොමද simultaneous equation කියන word එක use කරලා තියෙනවා. Or as a hint. No, there's no hint here, right? They just ask you to calculate the cost price of the share, right? But you should be smart enough and just realize මේක හදන්න නැත්නම් මේක solve කරන්න use කරන්න ඕන method එක මොකක්ද කියලා. That should be your skill. Okay? So, how do you figure that out then? කොහොමද ඔක determine කරන්නේ? There are many things you learn in the class, right? Simple equation, simultaneous equation, so many different types of equations, right? So make a simultaneous කියලා hint එකක් ඔයාලට ගන්න පුළුවන් based on the wording. If you read the wording carefully, you would get some indication that this is the path I am supposed to use to solve it, right? What is the hint පුතා? මේක hint එක බලුවොත් the hint is that මෙතන කතා කරනවා about two different companies, right? Anura purchased 61 shares from company A. This is one company, right? And also 80 shares from company B. Companies දෙකක් ගැන කතා කරනවා නේද? That means you don't know the price of a share of company A and you don't know the price of a share of company B. එතකොට ඔයා දන්නේ නැති දේවල් දෙකක් තියෙනවා නේද? There are two unknowns. That is the price of the share of A company and the price of a share of B company. If you have two unknowns, නොදන්නා දේවල් දෙකක් තියෙනවා, නොදන්නා පද දෙකක්. There are two terms that you don't know. If that's the case, what type of equation is it? It should be simultaneous, right? So this is the thought process. It should be coming from your experience with your notes and the studies that you have done, right? You cannot solve this. It should be simultaneous equation at the end of the day, right? Okay, so let's try to solve this. Right? So I'm going to develop the two formulas for the simultaneous equation. So Buddha, I'm going to assume, right, the price of company A share. A company ke share price එක අපි හිතමු A කියලා. I will assign the letter A for that. And the price of a share of B company, I am going to assign the letter B for that, right? This is our assumption, right? Okay. Now I'm going to develop the formula. It's simple. For A company ke shares, how many are you going to purchase from A company? 61 shares. At a price of, we don't know the price, right? The price එක දන්නේ නැනේ. But the price we have assigned the letter as A. A කියන letter එක assign කරා නේද? එතකොට 61 shares of A. 61 multiplied by A plus how many shares of B are you purchasing? 80. 80 multiplied by the share price of B should be equal to how much? Then may shares ඔක්කොම purchase කරන්න කීයක් ගියාලුද අරුණට? අරුණට ගියාලු රුපියල් 7,042, 7,042. Okay. So the aggregate of these two should be 7,042. Is that clear? It should be, right? Okay. Now we can simplify this a little. Simplify 61 multiplied by A kya puta 61A, right? And 80 multiplied by B is 80B, right? and this is equal to 7042, right? Okay. So this is equation 1. Then Aruna purchase karabu shares wala formula ka make, right? Then on the other hand, there's another statement given. With our statement that is Vasana purchased 61 shares from company A. Okay, again, 61 shares from company A. This is the cost of that. Plus how many shares of company B? 14 shares. 14 multiplied by the B share price is equal to 3,346. 3346, right? Okay. So you can simplify this as well. That would be 61A plus 14B is equal to 3346. Right. So these are your two formulas. Formulas. Right. Then make a hadagattara passe. Now we are supposed to simplify this, right? So assume this is formula number 1 and this is formula number 2. Okay. I'm going to give assign a number just to demarcate the two, right? Then mehema tiyagana make solve karanna bෑ. These are basics, right? You should know that you cannot solve both the unknown factors at the same time. What you should do is you should eliminate one of the unknowns. මොනවාද අපේ unknowns? මේ A කියන එකයි B කියන එකයි. ඕකනේ නොදන්න දන්නේ නැති දෙක, right? So how to eliminate either A or B? It is simple. What you need to do is if you deduct formula 2 from formula 1, or may formula 1 එකෙන් මේ formula 2 එක අඩු කරොත් මේ 61 කියන එක knock off වෙනවා නේද? 61A minus 61A becomes 0, right? So that would isolate only the B unknown. B පදේ විතර ඔයාලට isolate කරගන්න පුළුවන්. So that's what we are going to do now, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take formula 1 and minus formula 2, right? එකෙන් දෙක කියන එක අඩු කරලා, right? So පුතා 61 minus 61A minus 61A is of course 0. 80B minus 14B. 80B. 80B minus 14B. This becomes how much? 7,042 minus 3,346. Right? So this is what you are left with when you deduct 2 from 1. Okay? අසුවෙන් 14ක් ගියාම කීයද පුතා? අසුවෙන් 14ක් ගියාම 66. 66B is equal to 7,042. Okay. 7,042 minus 3,346. You get 3,696. Right? So then make a solve කරන්න කොහොමද? This is the grade 5 maths. Okay. So how to solve from here? It would be the 66 and B අතර between this 66 and B, what is the mathematical operator? මොකක්ද තියෙන්නේ මේ දෙන්න අතරේ? It's a multiplication, right? Even though we don't add this symbol, it's a multiplication, right? So this multiplication, if you take it to the other side, beyond the equation symbol, it would be what? It would be a division, right? So B is equal to 3696 divided by 66. Okay. How much would be your answer? 3696 divided by 66. You are getting 56. B සමානයි 56 කියලා උත්තරයක්. B equals 56. So that means පුතා B share එකේ price එක 56 කියලා ඔන්න දැන් ඔයා හදාගත්තා. Right? This is 56. Right? This doesn't stop there. දැන් මෙතනින් මේ ගාන ඉවර නැහැ. What are you supposed to do? You are supposed to compute A as well. Why? What again? Calculate the cost price of share of each company. Companies දෙකක් තියෙනවානේ. එතකොට B කියන එක විතරක් හදලා මදි. You are supposed to compute it for A as well, right? So how do you do it? Okay, I ran out of space, so I will go to the next slide, right? What I'm going to do is B equals 56 කියන එක can substitute to either one of these formulas. Then මෙතන formula 1 and formula 2 කියලා දෙකක් හදාගත්තානේ, right? ඔය දෙකෙන් ඉහෙකට out of these two you can select either one and substitute B equals 56 to that particular formula, right? So I'm going to substitute for formula 1. Even if you substitute for formula 2, it doesn't make a difference. So the answer will be the same, right? So formula 1 is what? Formula 1 is මෙන්න මේක. Formula 1 is 61A plus 80B is equal to how much? 7042. 7042. Okay. So I'm going to write this again. 61A plus 80 into what? 80 into 56. Then B සමානයි 56 කියලා අපි ඉගෙන ගත්තා. 80 into 56 is equal to 7042. Right? So how to simplify this? 80 multiplied by 56 is 4480. 4480. 7042 remains the same, plus 61A. So this 4480, you can shift it to this side as a negative, right? So 7042 minus 4480 is equal to 61A. How much would this be? 7042 minus answer 2562. 2562 is equal to 61A. So your A would be equal to 2562 divided by this 61. 61. The answer would be 42. Right? So your A will be equal to 42. Right? So I hope that is clear to you guys. Right? So we have computed B as 56 and A as 42. Answer. Right? So the trick is this, or the turning point should be that you should be able to determine that this question is coming from simultaneous equation. Once you make that conclusion, the rest is easy. Simultaneous equations you are learning in maybe grade 6, right? Or even earlier than that. I don't know, right? So this is a very basic principle. It's just a matter of determining that we have to do it from a simultaneous equation standpoint, right? So that's the only thing. Okay. So hope this is clear. And this was something that they tested in the exam. This stuff are easy. Okay. Right. So I will move to the next questions. Okay. Calculation of loan installment. Okay, this is a more intricate section, right? There are some math involved here, more complicated math. So I will remind you how to compute the loan installment, right? So I gave you a rough brief earlier, what we are trying to do here. I will just give you a scenario in this case, okay? The scenario is this. You want a 100,000 rupee loan and you are going to HNB, or Hatton National Bank, right? Or bank guys, I need a loan of 100,000 rupees, right? They would look at you and say, okay, sir, sure, take a seat. So, madam, take a seat. For how long are you planning to settle the loan? Right? So essentially, they are inquiring about the tenor. I want this loan for 3 years, right? That's my plan, right? For 3 years. They say, okay. So are you going to play monthly installment or what's your frequency of repayment? You'd say it's a monthly payment. But I'm a monthly salaried employee. So I'm going to pay this on a monthly basis. Right? Fine. All clear. Then the guy sitting at the counter or the loan officer of HNB, this fellow will do some math. That means he is going to do some computation at the back end, right? And he will tell you exactly, sir, let's say, I don't know, maybe 5,000 bucks. Does it make sense? Yeah, not even 5,000. Let's say 4,400 rupees. This is not the exact figure, just as an example. He will give you a fixed number. Sir, installment right? He will tell you this exactly. So what would happen? When you are repaying this loan every month from your salary, you are going to set aside 4,400 and send it back to the bank to settle it, right? What happens at the end? Once you are completing all your 36 payments, why 36? Because you are doing it on a monthly basis, right? එතකොට අවුරුද්දකට payments 12යි අවුරුදු 3ට 36යි. 3 years makes it 36 repayments. So once you are done with all these payments, what's your loan value? It should obviously be zero, right? Or zero වෙලා යනවා, right? So this is the concept. This you are familiar with, right? So the problem is that you should be aware how to compute this 4,400. දැන් මේ 4,400 කියන එක කොහොම හරි හදලා කිව්වනේ. This is a figure කියලා. So how do you compute this? That's the math you should know, okay? Right. So to do this math, there's an easy formula, right? දැන් ඔක හදන්න තියෙනවා මෙන්න මෙහෙම formula එක. Installment is equal to loan divided by the cumulative discounting factor, CDF, right? So in my example, okay, loan එක කීයද පුතා? 100,000. ඕක අරගෙන බෙදන්න ඕන ඕක. You have to divide this by something called the CDF, cumulative discounting factor, right? Okay, fine. How do you compute this CDF? There's another formula for this. මේ denominator එක ගන්න CDF කියලා තව formula එකක් ඉගෙන ගන්නවා. That would be CDF is equal to 1 divided by R multiplied by 1 minus 1 divided by 1 plus R to the power n. There's a bit of a complex formula to get CDF, the figure, right? So once you arrive at this figure and divide your loan value by that, you get your installment nicely. Again, installment එක ඔයාලට හදාගන්න පුළුවන්. This is clear, right? Okay. So I will show you based on an example how to use this formula to arrive at your installment value. Okay. Now remember guys, even though there's a complicated formula like this, then CDF formula right? Even though there's a formula like this, in practice you are not inclined to use this. Make a hadanno exam again. Why is that? There's something called the CDF table. You table එකක් වාට දෙනවා පුතා මේ CDF කියන එක pre-compute කරලා. The math has been done and it is summarized into a table which will be given to you in the exam, right? So you can use your CDF table to compute this denominator. Cumulative discounting factor එකේ table එක read කරලා ගන්න පුළුවන්, right? So guys, that table is given here. This is not the exact table you will see in the exam. It will have a different format and a different set of rounding off. It would be rounded off for 3 decimals, for example, right? But anyways, it would be more or less the same thing, right? So I will teach you how to read this table based on the given scenario, right? And derive what? ඔය table එකේ මොකද්ද හදන්නේ? මේ denominator එක මේ CDF කියන එක තමයි හදාගන්නේ table එක, right? Without having to use this complicated formula, right? Clear? Okay. So now we will go for example, then all of this would be clear, right? Okay, so this is the example that I have took. Pasan is looking for a loan scheme that supports his higher studies, right? Okay, he came across a bank which he can obtain a loan for rupees 800,000 at an interest rate of 9% per annum. Okay, so you are supposed to calculate the annual installment of this loan if it is to be settled for 5 years, right? If you take a loan of how much? 800,000 at a rate of how much? 9% per annum. And if you are supposed to settle this in 5 years, how much are you supposed to pay per annum? This is important. Or make a given monthly name. It says what? Annual installment. This one, right? 5 times, right? Over the 5 years, if you are going to pay each year, you are making 5 payments only. Clear, right? Okay. So now let's do the math for this. Then I'll be making annual installment. Okay. Now guys, I am going to use this particular formula. That should be your start naturally, right? That is your installment is equal to loan divided by the cumulative discounting factor. Okay. So I will just write it roughly. My writing now is not the best, but here we go. Installment is equal to loan divided by CDF, the cumulative discounting factor. Okay, namang formula, right? Then make a base karagana. Oya formula numbers assign karan. You are supposed to assign the numbers now, right? So Buddha, what is the loan value? It's given in the question, right? See, how much? 800,000. This is what you require, right? Okay, so instead of loan, I'm going to put 800,000 to the top. Lakshata කියන එක උඩට දාලා. Fine. Now the CDF, this is the tricky part, right? Let me CDF කියන එක හදන්න. I told you that there's a fancy formula. This is it. CDF කියන එක හදන්න ඕම formula එකක් තියෙනවා, right? So if you are going to use this formula to arrive at the CDF, the way the numbers would work would be, now watch, okay? CDF is equal to what? 1 divided by R. R stands for the interest rate, right? මේක interest rate එක කීයද පුතා? 9% per annum, right? Ayana 1 divided by 9%. Within brackets 1 minus 1 divided by 1 plus R. R is again 9%. See, N is the number of installments, right? So the number of installments is how much? Or number of years in this case? Would be 5. Pasparak no repayments karan. Okay. So in this case, this should be to the power 5. Right? Once you solve the answer and get the CDF figure here, whatever it may be, you are supposed to put it down here. CDF කියන එක මෙතෙන්ට දාගත්තාම you get the installment, right? Now, when you look at this formula, when you are looking at the CDF computation, I know you have the scientific calculator with you, you can work this out, but there's an easier way of finding this number. The easier way would be to find it from this table, right? This table is there in your exam, right? So how to read this table and make the clear one? The way you should read it is, guys, in this axis, horizontally, you have what? You have the percentages. So again, interest rate R. I would say R, the rate, right? And down here, you have the frequency. This is the number of terms or the years in our example. Vertically and horizontally, you will have the rates. Okay. So how to get your CDF factor now for your example? Your CDF factor, you have to take it at 9% for how many years? 5 years. Let's read it now. Percentage should be how much? 9%. See this? 9%. Okay. And how many years? Should be 5 years. Right? So what is the intersection of these columns and the rows? The intersection. 3.8897. The number. So this is the number that you are supposed to get here. And the formula work out but if you work this formula out, it should be how much? It's supposed to be 3.8897 roughly. We answer again, right? So that's the easier way. I think you are clear. So based on this table, you can easily identify the corresponding cumulative discounting factor for any interest rate for a number of installments, right? Okay. So the number figure out you can just go back to your equation, right? So here I will erase this, of course. Now comes your CDF figure. CDF is 3.8897. Now we derive that, right? 3.8897. Okay. So what is your installment value now? You can work it out from your calculator. 800,000 divided by 3.8897. You are getting 205,671 to the nearest rupees. Make you are ending up with some cents. Forget about the cents. Let's write the whole figure, right? 205,671 roughly. So this is the installment, right? What's the meaning of this? That means every year you are supposed to pay to the bank as a repayment. How much is it? That installment or the repayment should be 205,671. How many are you supposed to pay? 5 payments, right? Then your loan value would be how much? 0. That's the logic. So if you go to a bank and just define this scenario, the bank guy would be doing the same math and coming up with this answer, right? So this is how you compute the installment, right? This is simple. It's not that complicated, right? As long as you know this formula and how to assign the number, right? So I hope that is clear for all of you guys, right? So now I told you in certain questions, Buddha, this flow is reversed. Then make on flow. What do I mean by the flow? The flow is this. The flow of the question. Make it gala flow. That would be from the loan. ඔය loan එක මුලින්ම දෙනවා. Loan එක දීලා ඉවර වෙලා ඔගෙන් අහනවා installment එක. You are supposed to compute the installment after they give you the loan figure, right? But in certain questions, they can test it the other way around. They will tell you the installment value first. What installment එක දෙනවා මුලින්ම. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ 205,000 කියන figure එක ඔයාලට දෙනවා මුලින්ම. ඒක දීලා after giving that, they will ask you how much is the loan value. වගේ loan එක කොච්චරක්ද කියලා අහනවා. අනික් අතට. Right? So this is what they had asked in the recent exam, right? So the guys who went for the exam, they would think, sir, කියලා දුන්නා installment එක හදන්න. හැබැයි මේක අපිට කියලා දුන්නේ නැහැ loan එකේ value එක හදන විදිය. There's no separate formula for this, right? You have to use the same formula, right? There's no difference. So instead of computing the installment, now we are supposed to compute it backwards, back to the loan, right? Again, it's a simplistic method, right? So we will do example for this reverse computation as well. So just so that you know how to assign the number, right? So this is a copy paste from your past paper. Let's work out the numbers here. I will clear this slide and also this slide and also this slide. Okay, now it looks clean. Okay, so this is the reverse computation I was talking about. Now we make a hush. Manoj obtained a loan from a bank for 4 years at a rate of 12% per annum, right? And it is to be repaid in equal annual installments of 65,842, right? $100 rate එක, number of years is 4, and your installment is 65,000. You have to read carefully, yeah? This is not the loan value. Then කලින් ගානේ 800,000 කියන්නේ මොකද? That was a loan, loan, right? But here it is what? The installment. Right? Okay. So after giving this installment, what they are supposed to do? You are supposed to calculate the amount of the loan obtained by Manoj. So what should be your initial loan value? That's what you are supposed to compute. So guys, is there a separate formula for a question like this? Not at all. It's the same formula. What is our formula? You can remember. The formula was installment is equal to loan divided by the CDF. මේක නේද use කරේ කලින් ගාන, right? Loan divided by CDF නේ ඕකමනේ use කරේ, right? Okay, we will use the same thing for this question as well, right? Okay, now I will assign the numbers. Then make a loan එක වෙනුවට දාන්න number එකක් නැහැ. We are supposed to compute the loan value, right? So you cannot assign a number here. So I am putting it as x. Maike x kila mark kara. Numerator, right? The denominator CDF, we will get to that. What's the installment? Then make a equation left side they got complete kanapula. Your installment is how much? 65,848. Installment right. Then CDF. How did we compute the CDF? You can use that fancy formula or you can read that table and figure it out. So from that table, let's figure out the CDF. Okay. So before we go there, we should remember the number of installments and the rate. Then make on a rate take here 12%. Number of installments 4. Now let's jump to that table. Right. Number of installments is 4. Maybe අපි ගන්නවා 4 කියන. 4 තියෙනවා. Percentage, the loan rate is how much was it? 12%, right? Okay. 4 by 12. This is 12. Okay. So may the column එකයි row එකයි selection එක intersection point එකම ගන්න. This is the point, right? You see that? How much is it? It is 3.0373, right? So you don't have to use this fancy formula. And make අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. If you want it, you can use it, but there's an easier way to arrive at this number. Okay. So 3.0373. That is the number. So this CDF figure, we will bring to our equation as the denominator, right? මෙතන පල්ලෙහාට දාන්න පුළුවන් 3.0373. Okay, that was the number, right? 3.0373. Okay. So make a deal guys. Now this is a simple formula, right? Make a hadagattara passe x කියන එක හොයන්න පුළුවන් නේද? ඕන කෙනෙකුට. That is it. X is what? මේ x කියලා කියන්නේ පුතා ඔයගේ loan value. Is that clear? Okay. How to simplify this පුතා? Grade 3 maths. How to isolate x? X is divided by 3 point something, right? So if you were to shift this to the other side of the equation, the division becomes a what? Multiplication, right? So that means x would be equal to 65848 multiplied by 3.0373. Make an x කියන එකට answer එක වෙන්න ඕන, right? You shift it to the other side, right? Simple. So what is your x answer? What is your loan value? අපි හදලා බලමු. 65848 multiplied by 3.0373. Okay. You are getting 200,000 point something, right? You get some cents. But roughly, this is how much? 200K. Okay, loan value then. The amount of loan obtained by Manoj is 200,000, right? So that's the thing. When how do I say? Don't get tricked by the examiner's tactics, right? There's no separate formula to compute the amount of the loan. You can use the same thing that you learn in the class, right? What loan එක දීලා installment එක හදන්නත් පුළුවන්, installment එක දීලා අනික අතට loan එක හදන්නත් පුළුවන්, right? So both these scenarios have been tested in the exam, right? So what could be a different scenario? Maybe the examiner will not test both these scenarios. They will ask something else. What could be the other things? The examiner can give you the loan amount, installment, the number of repayments, and ask what? The rate, right? Okay, variables. What are the variables? You need the loan, installment, you have the rate, and also the number of periods. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the variables, right? මේ හතරෙන් ඕන තුනක් දීලා අනික් එක හදන්න කියන්න පුළුවන්, right? For example, ඔයාලට පුළුවන් loan එකයි rate එකයි number of installments උයි දුන්නාම installment එක හදන්න පුළුවන් නේද? Right? Similarly, right? You should be able to do loan, installment, rate, and the number of repayments, right? So loan එක දෙනවා, rate එක දෙනවා, period එක දෙනවා. They are going to ask you the installment. Can it be done? Can be done. This is the first scenario. අපි මේ කලින් හදපු ගානේ ඒ වගේ, right? Now in the second scenario, what can they check? In the second scenario is relating to the second question. මොනවද දුන්නේ? Installment එක දුන්නා, rate එක දුන්නා, number of installments දුන්නා. එයාගෙන් ඇහුවා loan එක කීයද කියලා. Right? This is the scenario number 2 that we just discussed, right? So what are the things the examiner can check now? දැන් මෙහෙම අහන්න නැතුව අහනවා නම් මොකක්ද එයාට අහන්න පුළුවන්? They can ask something like this then. I will show you. It would be, they will give you the loan. Loan එක දෙනවා. Right? Installment එකක් දෙනවා. Right? Rate එකක් දීලා වගේ අහන්න පුළුවන් මේකේ loan එකේ tenor එක. නැත්තම් installments ගාන කීයද කියලා අහන්න පුළුවන්. That's one way of developing a new question if they want, right? Or they can do something like this. They can give you the number of installments, the rate, sorry, not the rate. They can give you the number of installments, the loan, and the installment value, and ask to compute this. Right? So think out loud, right? There are only these are the only possible combinations, right? So just be familiar with this formula. Right? So it's just a matter of knowing what are the numbers to substitute and what are the numbers to compute, right? A variable හතරෙන් තුනක් දීලා අනික් එක කීයද කියලා අහන්න පුළුවන්. The examiner can do that. Okay? So I hope this is clear. This is this question number 3 that you see on the screen. It is the same thing from your past paper, right? So be familiar with all these computations to that, right? So now, if you cannot remember anything, then make a hadad if it is like Greek, or is it like it is like Tamil. If that is the case, Pudha, you will have to go back and watch the video. Then make a hadati melodiyam mataka netta. If you are clueless, right? Definitely go back and check your study material, because this is something they check very often. Okay, right? That is clear. Now we are moving to another question that is about the break-even point, right? So the break-even point, I explained it briefly in the previous slide. What is a break-even point? You would know now. That would be the scenario in which you are not earning a profit or a loss, right? Labhat naha, padut naha business again. Or in other words, your profit is zero, right? So Buddha, from mathematics perspective, right? As a theory, you can compute this situation. මේ situation එක achieve කරන්නවා මොකක්ද කරන්න ඕන කියන එක you can derive from maths, right? So for your business, the thought process should be this. If you are running a business, Buddha, in order to survive in the market, business එක වහලා දාන්න නැතුව කරගෙන යන්න නම්, in order to survive, what is the bare minimum you should achieve? The break-even point. Okay, break-even එකවත් නැත්තම් පුදා, you cannot continue your business, right? Because you should make money to continue the business, right? ඔයා කරන business එකේ ලාභත් නැහැ, පාඩුත් නැත්තම් මොකක්ද case එක? You can survive without closing it, right? But there would be no growth. Whatever you earn goes from the other side as your cost. That is break-even, right? So this is the bare minimum situation that you have to achieve to continue your business operations as it is. Okay, right. So this break-even point, Buddha, as a theory we learned in the class, you can define or derive this situation using two formulas, right? Either you can consider this situation as total revenues is equal to total cost. This is your first method of deriving this. And the second method of computing this would be total profit will be equal to 0. Where logics දෙකෙන් ඕන එකක් use කරලා ඔයාට break even point එක develop කරන්න පුළුවන්. Okay? So it is either or. That means in the exam, if they tell you to compute the break even point, Buddha, don't try to compute it in both the ways. You learn this in the class. There are two ways to do it, but you don't have to do it both the ways, because whatever the answer you are getting would be the same, regardless of the method that you use, right? So what you are supposed to do is you compute it in one of the ways that is possible. By ගානේ තියෙන data අනුව you can decide which approach you are supposed to use, but your final answer would be the same, regardless of the method that you use. Okay? So now we'll go to an example, right? And before going to the example, I will remind you what is TR, TC, and TP. Then make a hadan isserwela. You should remember what is TR, TC, and TP. What these acronyms mean, right? So here's a slide, guys. This summarizes what these formulas are, right? For example, TR stands for total revenue function, right? And the total revenue function is derived as total revenue is equal to price multiplied by quantity. මේ දෙන කොඩි formula එකක් පල්ලෙහා. ඒක තමයි මම මේ කියවන්නේ, right? Wait, let me clear that ink. Okay. So this is the formula that I am looking at, right? See here, this is where you should focus. Total revenue is equal to price multiplied by quantity, right? This is a simple formula to compute the total revenue of a business. Okay. Why does it? What does it make sense? Why your total revenue is derived by price into quantity? උදා හිතන්න මේ class එකේ දැන් my video session එකේ, let's say there are 10 people, right? From each person, I'm going to collect 50 rupees, right? 50 ගානේ ගන්නවා ඔයගොල්ලෝ. හරිද? 10 දෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා. There are 10 fellows in this session. Fine. So what is my total revenue from having this online session? That would be 10 students multiplied by $50. So the price per unit is 50, quantity would be 10, right? So if you multiply these two, your revenue comes, right? That's the formula, right? That is that TR is equal to price into quantity. Clear. Then the total cost. Okay, business එකේ total cost එක කොහොමද derive කරන්නේ? There's a formula for that as well. What is the formula? Total cost is equal to VC plus FC. What is VC and FC? You would know these acronyms. You would have VC stands for variable cost, and FC stands for fixed cost, right? ඕනම් business එකක පුතා cost ಜಾති දෙකක් තියෙනවා. cost T එකක් තියෙනවා cost නෙමෙයි. හරි මොනවාද cost ಜಾති දෙක? You have something called the variable cost and the fixed cost, right? What's the difference? You know this, right? Then මේ class එක මම කරන්නේ physical now. If this was a physical session, the rent that I would be paying for this classroom, it does not depend on the number of students that are coming, right? Then mama may class එකේ physical class එකක් කියලා assume කරන්න. Assume it's a physical class. Then mama class එකේ ඇවිල්ලා මටම ඉගෙනුවත් මගේ rent එක කීයද? Let's say it is 10,000. It remains the same. එක ළමයෙක් ආවොත් how much is my monthly rent? Still it remains the same, 10,000. ළමයි 10 දෙනෙක් ආවොත් same, 10,000, right? Therefore, if you have stacked children on top of each other, right? එකා උඩ එකා ගොඩ ගහලා තිබ්බත් ළමයි, what's my rent? 10,000, right? So this rent cost is what? Is it fixed or variable? It is fixed, right? It doesn't change with the quantity that I'm producing in this class. In my case, it would be the number of students, right? ඒක මත depend වෙන්නේ නැහැ නේ my cost එක. So that is fixed. What is variable? Variable means පුතා, it is a cost element that changes with the number of units I am producing. For example, class එකට ඇති මම ඔයාලට tube එකක් දෙනවා, right? A tube එක හිතන්න print කරනවා රුපියල් 100ක් ගියා කියලා. The printing cost per tube is $100, right? If one student comes, what's my tube printing cost? 100 rupees. If 10 students come, how much is my printing cost? 1,000 rupees, right? It increases, right? So similarly, if 100 student comes and per tube I'm going to spend $100, 100 into 100, how much is my tube cost? It would be 10,000, right? So based on the number of students, my cost will vary, right? Cost එක වෙනස් වෙනා නේද? Cost in that behavior would be classified under variable cost. So in any business, whatever the cost you have, you can broadly classify this into fixed and variable, right? But from a accounting function or a maths function, the total cost is the aggregate of both these. Whether එකතු කරාම total එක එන්නේ බෑනේ. Either it's variable or fixed, right? That's why the total cost is defined as variable cost plus fixed cost. Clear, right? Okay. Now what's the next formula? That is the total profit, right? කොහොමද then total profit එක හදන්නේ? Right. Total profit is the total revenue minus the total cost. Buddha, you learn this in accounts as well, right? For accounting, you are doing this something called the income statement, right? Statement of comprehensive income. There's a fancy term for this. Okay. So what is the structure of that? මුලින්ම වාගේ sales revenue එක නැත්නම් income එකනේ උඩින්ම දාන්න. Income එක දාලා ඒකෙන් ඔක්කොම expenses ටික අඩු කරනවා. Sales and marketing, administration, cost of sales, the whole thing, right? ඔය ඔක්කොම expenses කියලා classify කරොත්, ඔය cost එක කියලා classify කරොත්, once you deduct your full expense from your income, what is remaining would be the profit. ඔබ නේද income statement එක හදන්නේ අන්තිමට. This is your net profit කියලා. Net profit before tax or after tax, whatever, right? So that's the same logic. In a very simplistic term, total profit would be total revenue minus total cost. So the total revenue කියන්නේ first function එක TR minus TC. Clear, right? පළවෙනි function එකෙන් දෙවෙනි එක අඩු කරාම ආට profit එක එනවා. Simple, right? So the relationship between these three functions is that total revenue minus, this is a minus mark, TR minus TC would be equal to what? TP, right? So this is how the total functions would work, right? So all this is explained in very great detail in our videos. So if you can't recall anything about this, please go back and watch this and refresh your memory, okay? Then Buddha, apart from these total functions, you have something called the marginal function as well, right? So marginal functions when marginal revenue, marginal cost, and the marginal profit. These are the three functions, right? So how do you develop these marginal functions? Is something through something called differentiation. Our column. Make a class the way you differentiate a function, right? So again, differentiation in itself is a big topic, right? But for AAT students, or from a business maths perspective, you don't have to go into the great complexities of differentiation. Then differentiation කියන එක A-level maths කරපු එක්කෙනෙක්ගෙන් ඇහුවොත්, if you ask about differentiation from a A-level maths person, he will tell you a big story. We learned this in A-level syllabus for 3 months, and there are X many ways you can differentiate things. There are differentiation logics. Yeah, there's a whole topic. But for business maths perspective, there's only one theory that I teach in the class, right? That is more than enough for you to differentiate your total functions to your marginal function, right? So එකක් බලාගන්න ඕන. I'm not going to teach differentiation, of course. It would take me an hour or two, right? But if you cannot recall this concept, the concept is what? Converting your total function to the marginal function. Please go back and revisit your differentiation notes. Okay. So this is the crux or the core of your operative measures topic, right? TR, TC, and TP, MR, MC, and MP. Where formulas are used in it, right? So we were talking about the break-even point, right? So for break-even point, we don't need to consider these marginal functions. Marginal functions then අපිට වැඩක් නැහැ. මොකද හේතුව? මොකද break-even point එකේ තියෙන total functions නේද? TR, TC, and TP. ඔය තුනෙන් then it all refers to this first layer. මේ පළවෙනි layer ගැන තමයි ඔය කතා කරන්නේ, right? So we will stick to that, and we will do an example to compute the break-even point, right? So for this also, Buddha, I have selected a question from your most recent past paper, right? So we will work it out, right? This is the type of question they can ask in your exam as well, right? Break-even point. So let's read. The total cost function and the demand function of a firm per month are given by the following equation, right? TC is equal to 13Q squared plus 5Q minus 10,000. P is equal to 13Q minus 20, where Q is the number of units produced during per month. Okay. So guys, here you are required to calculate the break-even quantity. Fine. So in essence, that they are asking is calculation of the break-even point here, right? So BP එක ගැන තමයි අහන්නේ, break-even point. හරි. දැන් පුතා break-even point කියන එක අහපු ගාම your system should trigger. How do you compute the break-even point, පුතා? What are the two methods? TR is equal to TC. නැත්නම් TP is equal to 0. ඕකනේ මම දැන් theory එකක් විදියට කියලා දුන්නේ. This is it. So this is the way you can do this, right? There are two ways. So here, Buddha, you have to either compute TR and TC, or you are supposed to derive the TP, the total profit, based on this data, right? So I will teach you how to do this quantification or this calculation based on this first method. මේ පළවෙනි method එක මම මේක හදන විදිය කියලා දෙන්න. Right. So what is the first method? The first method is TR is equal to TC. That may method may function එක use කරොත් you get your break-even point. Clear? Okay. So out of the data that the examiner has given us, do you have the TR figure? දැන් මේ ගාන කියවත් කොහෙවත් TR කියලා figure එකක් තියනවාද? There's nothing as TR. You have something called the demand function. Demand කියන එක දීලා තියෙනවා function එකක් විදිහට. This is not the total revenue function. This is something else. This is the demand function, right? මොන demand function කියලා මොකක්ද එකක් දීලා තියෙනවා. හරි. ඒක අපි පස්සේ discuss කරමු, right? But TC, the total cost is given to us. It is given to us, right? You don't have to look for it. You don't have to derive this. It's given. The total cost function directly 13Q squared plus 5Q minus 1000. Okay. Then how to develop the TR part of it? Then may TR to develop TR, I gave you a formula, right? What was that? Then TR is equal to price into quantity. Okay, the formula. Use color, you have to develop TR now. And TR directly the examiner has given you an avenue to compute TR. TR function develop karanna, they have given us the necessary data, right? So we will develop it. How do you develop this thing? Okay. What is the formula for TR? TR is equal to price into quantity, right? So this price or the demand, right? Demand is defined. So your price is what? 13Q minus 20 kilowatt. Where did I get it? This is the demand function. Price P is equal to 13Q minus 20. Instead of P, I have written 13Q minus 20, right? Okay. Then this whole thing should be multiplied by Q. Right? Don't forget this bracket, please. Right? You have to multiply entire price by the entire quantity. Right? So if you don't put this bracket, this multiplied by Q thing would be only applicable for what? It will be only applicable for this 20. Mistake a very common mistake is that you only multiply this 20 by Q without having this bracket. No, you cannot only multiply part of your price by the quantity. You have to multiply the whole thing. So the bracket is mandatory. Don't forget it in your exam. Okay. So now let's simplify this. So removing brackets, you know how to do that. 13Q. Sorry. You know how to remove the brackets now. 13Q multiplied by 20. That would be 13Q squared. Then 20 multiplied by Q be minus 20Q. TR function, right? We compute this. Okay. Then this TR function can be written in the left side now. Instead of TR, I am writing 13Q squared minus 20Q. Okay, right. Now let's simplify this. So now, yes, now let's simplify this. Okay, that would be 13Q squared minus 13Q squared. Then make it, wait, I will use a different pen color. Right. A 13Q squared if you shift it to the other side of your equation, right, you would end up with 0, right? 13Q squared 13Q squared you end up with nothing, right? So this two get offset. May I offset when you are simplifying this, right? Then what are you left with? May 20Q minus 20Q I am going to bring it to the other side, right? That would make it plus 20Q, right? This 5Q, I'm writing it as it is, 5Q. Then this minus 1000, I can shift it to the other side to eliminate the negative mark. May Rinadaha, minus 1000, if you shift it to the other side of the equation, it becomes just 1000, right? Positive 1000. Okay? Right. So what are you left with? 20Q plus 5Q will be 25Q is equal to 1000. So your Q will be equal to how much? 40, right? So what are they asking you to compute? The break-even quantity. Then our answer got Q Q is equal to 40. Answer that is your break-even quantity in simple terms, right? So how to define this 40? That means if you are the owner of this business, if you produce and sell 40 units, your income will be equal to your cost. That means you are in your break-even position, right? So that is the definition of this 40, right? So this is what they tested in the exam. It's a simple calculation, right? If you know this TR equals price into quantity, if you know this part, it's a very easy workaround to arrive at your answer. Okay. Right. So this is how you do the break-even point. Okay. So what else? Question number 5. Okay. Here I am discussing about the calculation of the mean, mode, and the media. Right. So here, Buddha, remember the mean, median, and the mode. These measures of central tendency. Right. The collective noun for this would be measures of central tendency, right? So for measures of central tendency, you have mean, mode, and the median. And there are ways to compute the mean, median, and the mode depending on the type of your data set, right? There's something called UFG and GFD. What is UFG? UFG is ungrouped frequency distribution. GFD is what? Group frequency distribution, right? What's the difference between the two? Matagadanna. What is a group frequency distribution? GFD Matagada. GFD is a data set where you have what? Where you have the what? Fandi Prantara, the sets. You remember, right? So if you have these class interval or the set in your data set, Fandi Prantara Tiyanana, there is a group frequency distribution, right? But if you don't find these class intervals in your data set, that means it is ungrouped frequency distribution, right? So based on the data set given, you should be able to see whether it's grouped or ungrouped, right? If it is ungrouped, the way you compute your measures of central tendency is given in this column, right? And if it is grouped, that means if your data set have these class intervals, the way you compute the three metrics is given in the second column, right? So all this stuff we have discussed in the class with examples, right? So anyways, just to refresh your memory, I will take a simple example and show you how to compute this for an ungrouped frequency distribution, right? So here it is. This is my example, right? So Buddha, based on this table, you are supposed to do what? Calculate the mean, mode, and the median based on the above data, right? So the calculations are these three. Mean, mode, and the median. Right, that is clear. Then, based on this table, you should be able to identify whether it's grouped or ungrouped. What's the type of the distribution given here, right? Buddha, can you see any class intervals here? Like a Panti Prantara තියෙනවා. Yani Buddha, Panti Prantara කියන්නේ is a class interval looks like this. 0 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30. These are class intervals, right? මේ වගේ data set එකක්ද මෙතන තියෙන්නේ? It's not, right? It's not. There are no class intervals here. If there are no class intervals, what's the type of frequency distribution this is? This is ungrouped, right? Ahena ungrouped කියලා determine කරාට පස්සේ you can use these formulas to arrive at your answer. Okay, so let's do that. Starting with mode. Okay, so your mode is sigma fx divided by sigma f. Fine. So I'm going to add a column here called fx, right? X is the number of units sold, f is the number of days, right? That is given to you. Fx means f multiplied by x, right? So let's multiply. 0 multiplied by 4 is 0. 1 multiplied by 11 is 11. 2 multiplied by 8 is 16. 3 by 5 would be 15. 4 by 3 would be 12. Right? So in here, these are the data you get, right? So now, in this formula, Putta, let me clear up this slide just so I'm focusing on one place. This is what we are going to solve, right? මෙතන පුතා sigma fx කියලා කියන්නේ sigma stands for total. Please remember that. Sigma symbol stands for total. එකතුව, total, right? So sigma fx means the total of fx. You have the fx column here. මේ තියෙන fx කියන එක AAK total එක තමයි දැන් ගන්න ඕන. You have to develop the total of this. So if you add this column all the way down, 0 plus 11 is 11, 11 plus 16 plus 15 plus 12. You are getting 54. 54. 54ක් එනවා නේද මේක add කරොත් බලන්න. This 54 පුතා is what you call as sigma fx. fx තීරුවේ එකතුව. Sigma fx, right? Then what is the other thing you need? Then sigma fx කියන එක හදාගත්තා. Is 54, right? Divided by sigma f. That's the denominator, right? Sigma f means the total of f, right? So what is the total of the f column, right? 4 plus 11 plus 8 plus 5 plus 3. Okay, we're getting 31 here. මේ column එකේ total එක 31ක් එනවා නේද? You get 31. This පුතා is what you call as sigma f. F තීරුවේ එකතුව, right? Then you have to divide this by 31 and your answer would be how much? 54 divided by 31. You are getting 1.74. So the answer is 1.74 k. This is your final answer for the mean. The mean data set exam what is the mean? Your answer should be 1.74. Clear? It's easy, right? Fine. Then you are supposed to compute the mode now. The mode day compute running. For an ungrouped frequency distribution, I'm talking about the ungrouped side. I'm talking about this first category. Sorry. Talking about this category. This, right? Ungrouped side, okay, for mode, there's no equation. The equation, right? So that's not a typo. I have deliberately left it out. Why is that? You don't need a formula to compute mode for an ungrouped frequency distribution. පුතා mode කියන්නේ නැත්නම් මාතේ කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? මාතේ කියන්නේ නැත්නම් mode day කියලා කියන්නේ that would be the most frequent occurrence in your data set. ඔයාගේ data set එකේ වැඩිම වාර ගන්නක් repeat වෙන number එක. What is the number that repeats the most in your data set? Do you need a formula to figure this out for ungrouped frequency distribution? Not really, right? Because why? You are selling 0 units in 4 days. You are selling 1 unit in 11 days. You are selling 2 units in 8 of the days and 3 units in 5 times and 4 units in 3 days, right? So what's the most frequent occurrence in this data set? Mone units that would be 1 unit, right? Unit you have 11 days where in which you solve only 1 unit. That is the most frequent occurrence in this data set, right? So over here, you don't need a formula. You can directly write your answer as your mode is 1 acre. That's the most repeated number in your data set. You might think, sir, is it 11 or 1? The frequency and the data is 1, right? X value is 1. Uda, you have to write the X value here, not the frequency, right? Because why? Because if I write this as a string of items, let's say, බින්දුවේවා කීයක් තියෙනවද පුතා? බින්දුවේවා තියෙනවා 4ක්. 0 0 0 0. Okay. Then එකේවා තියෙනවා 11. You have 1 1 1 1 1. That makes it 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. Then දෙකේවා 8ක් තියෙනවා. 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 3 4 5 6 7. Right, something like this, right? Okay, fine. Then there are 3 5s. 3 3 3 3 3. By විදිහටවා row data එක ලිව්වොත් what's the most frequent number that you will see in this? I didn't write the 4s or the 5s, but anyway, you get the logic. මෙතන වැඩිම වාර ගන්නක් ඔයාලට පේන number එක මොකක්ද? එක නේද? This is what you have to conclude as your answer. The most frequent occurrence or the mode is 1. Clear? Okay. Then the median, the last one. You have to compute this based on n plus 1 term. Sorry, n plus 1 divided by the second term. Okay. So n stands for the number of items. The number of days, frequency you have 31 here. Sigma f that would be the number of terms that you see here, right? So Your n is 31 plus 1 divided by 2. You are getting what? 31 plus 1 is 32. 32 divided by 2 would be 16, right? 16 term. Right? So this is not your final answer. What this tells you is an indication where the median is. What is median? Let's simplify this now. Median means in your data set, what is the center point? Madhyastha in Sinhala, right? Data set let's assume this is the data set. Make a hari That's the media, right? So if you now write all your numbers from 0 to 5 in our case, all the numbers or numbers this worth hari right? So what this formula shows you is where exactly that center point is. That center point is at what? The 16th term. So what is the 16th term here? So to find it, I will add a column called cumulative frequency. Cumulative frequency, right? You have 4 here. 4 plus 11, you get 15. 15 plus 8, you get 23. 23 plus 5, you are getting, I'm adding numbers on a cumulative basis. 23 plus 5 is 28. 28 plus 3 is 31. Okay, the cumulative frequencies. You are adding your frequencies on top of each other. So when you look at it, where is the 16th term? දාසයවැනි පදේ කොතනද තියෙන්නේ? පළවෙනි numbers හතර පුතේ බිංදුව ඒවා. The first 4 numbers are zeros, right? And up to 15, you have ones. And from 15 to the 23rd term, you have twos. දෙකේවන ඉතුරු අටම තියෙන්නේ. So you can see this actually in the data set that I have written here. මෙතන උඩම ලියලා තියෙන මේ data set එක බලුවොත් පුතා. Wait. Let me clear this. Okay. Then මෙතන 16 වෙනි පදේ තමයි අපි දැන් ගන්න හදන්නේ, right? So this is, I know this is a bit messy, but anyways, this is the first term, second term, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 term එක මොකද්ද පුතා? දෙකේ එකක් නේද තියෙන්නේ? This is what we need to find. Or method තියෙන number එක හොයන්න හදන්න. So rather than writing this whole thing, you can identify this based on the cumulative frequency. Following numbers හතර බිංදුව ඒවා. 4 ඉඳන් 15 වෙනකන් you have ones. And beyond 15, what are the things you have? 2 are starting, right? So එතකොට 16 term එක මොකක්ද පුතා? 16 term එක වෙන්නේ 2. 2 is your final answer, right? 16 වෙනියට පිහිටන්නේ in your series. It's number 2. දෙකේ එකක් නෙලියලා තියෙන්නේ, right? So that's what you need to find here, right? Again, it's a simple formula, but you need to know what you are looking for, right? So this is how you compute your measures of central tendency for a ungrouped frequency distribution. So similarly, Buddha, there are formulas for a group frequency distribution as well. Then wage data set එකේ class intervals දීලා තියෙනවා නම් you will have different set of formulas to work with, right? So please remember, it is very important for you to decide between ungrouped and grouped. ඕක මුලින්ම වරද්දගත්තොත් ඔයා දාන formula එකත් වැරදි. The approach will be different, right? So make sure you watch out for the fact that whether there are class intervals, පන්ති ප්‍රාන්තර තියෙනවද නැද්ද කියන එක බලන්න මුලින්. ඊට පස්සේ you can work it out the way you want. Okay? So I hope this is clear. This is also something simple, I would say. Okay? So be savvy with these formulas and you can work it out in your exam, right? Okay. So question number 6. Deriving the least square regression line y equals a plus bx. Okay. So here, Buddha, please remember the least square regression line is given as y equals a plus bx. Okay. So this particular y equals a plus bx is the same as y equals mx plus c. Then assume you are in grade 10, right? I am your maths teacher in your class, right? I come to you and tell you, Buddha, what is the formula of a straight line, right? Sarva rekhavaka samikaranaya kumakda. right? If I ask this question, what is your answer? Sir, the formula of a simple line or a straight line would be y equals mx plus c. This is something you learned back in the O-level days, right? So that is the same thing as y equals a plus bx. Now, අපි ඉගෙන ගන්න මේ y equals a plus bx කියන්නේ y equals mx plus c ම තමයි. It's the same thing. What's the connectivity? So the c that you learned previously in your y equals mx plus c formula, your c is now termed as a, right? Then your gradient m is now termed as b, right? So there are just a difference in the letter that we are using. So the simple things that you learned as y equals mx plus c are similarly applicable for y equals a plus bx, right? Okay. Now, in your O-level days, if you were to simplify this, may y equals mx plus c කියන function එක, if you were to simplify this particular function, what did you do? You assign numbers for m and c. May m කියන එකයි c කියන එකයි solve කරනවා, the gradient and the intercept, right? For example, I can say y equals 5x plus 10. This is a correct formula of a straight line, right? Then straight line එක solve කරපු formula එකක් ගත්තොත්, by solving means what you are doing is you are assigning a number for the intercept and the intercept and the gradient, right? M එකටයි c එකටයි numbers assign කරන එක කරන්නේ. Similarly, if you are solving the y equals ax plus b formula, what are the things you are supposed to solve? A and B, right? May A and B කියන දෙක තමයි ඒවා solve කරන්න. These two items. If you solve that, your equation formula is correct, right? Makes sense, right? So instead of solving M and C, now we are solving what? A and B. So to solve A and B, you have two formulas given. Okay. So you can just use this, right? So it looks a bit complicated, right? There are a lot of sigmas, n's, x's, whatever, right? So do you have to memorize the whole thing? Not really. You can memorize it, but it's not really required because both these formulas are given in your exam paper as well, right? So no need to by heart it, but you need to know how to work this out based on the formula, right? So let's learn how to work this out based on an example, okay? So now, this is the example that I'm taking. So here, Buddha, this is also inspired from your Jan 2024 past paper. The numbers I simplified a little, but it's the same question that they had asked, right? So you are required to identify the least square regression line between the number of dishes and the customer satisfaction. That is part A, right? Part B would be calculate the expected rating of the customer satisfaction if he offered 8 dishes for a particular week, whatever, right? That would be the forecast part of it. So we will get to that later. We will first work out the A part. A කියන කොටස අපි මුලින්ම ඉවර කරමු, right? So to solve part A, that means I am supposed to solve this y equals ax plus b formula. මේක හදාගන්නයි හදන්නේ. So we will solve B and A, okay? Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add two columns, x squared and xy. මේ columns දෙකම මුලින්ම දාගන්නවා. Right? You should know these stuff. Huh? If you don't know, go back to your videos. All right. So I'm just assuming you know what are the columns to add. So in this case, the two columns to add would be x squared and xy, right? That's how it is done for all the questions. So x squared would be the square value of this x column, right? Then x values 5, 10, 11, you see all this stuff, right? So I'm going to square them. The square of 5 would be 25, 10 squared would be 100, 121, 12 squared would be 144, 13 squared would be 169, 14 squared would be 196, 225, and 5, 6, right? That's how it would be. Then xy would be, xy means x multiplied by y. Then මෙතන තියෙන මේ x values multiply කරන්න ඕන y values වලින්. So 5 multiplied by 10 would be 15, right? 10 multiplied by 8, 80. 11 into 6 would be 66. 12 into 6 would be 7. 13 into 7. 13 into 7 would be 91. 14 into 8. 14 into 8 would be 112. Then 15 by 9 would be 135. Then 16 by 10 would be 160. Right? So once you develop all these numbers, the two columns, you're supposed to add all these numbers column by column. හැම column එක ගානේ මේකව පල්ලෙහාට දැන් add කරගෙන යන්න. Okay. First I will start with the total of the X column. The number of dishes. පළවෙනි column එක තියෙන්නේ. Let's add this. Okay. 5 plus 10 plus 11 plus 12 plus 13 plus 14 plus 15 plus 16. You are getting 96. මෙතන ඔයාලට answer කියනවා 96. පළවෙනි column එකේ total. Right? The total of the second column, that is customer satisfaction, would be 10 plus 8, 6 plus 6, 7 plus 8 plus 9 plus 10. You are getting 64 here. Then they know how to 64. Then let's add the other two columns as well. X squared column make a total. Like the total of the third column would be 25 plus 100 plus 121 plus 144 1 plus 169 plus 196 plus 225 plus 256. Okay, we are getting 1236. Okay, then the next column, XY column make a total like a 50 plus 80 plus 66 plus 72 plus 91 plus 112 plus 135 plus 160. You're getting 766. Okay, right. So Buddha, remember here you will have the total values for all these columns now. And for each of these, you can assign a name. මේ හැම එකටම නමක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. මොනවද හැම එකම කිව්වේ? These totals that we computed in red color, right? For example, this 96 is the total number of dishes, right? එනවා මේ 96 කියන්නේ X column එකේ total එක නේද? Right? එහෙනම් මේ 96ට අපිට නමක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. We can give it a name. The name would be sigma X, right? X column make a total like a sigma X. That is 96. Similarly, what should be the name of 64 then? That is a total of Y, right? So sigma Y is 64, right? Then what is the total of this column? That is 1, 2, 3, 6. That is the total of X squared. So instead of that, we can call this as sigma X squared, right? Then the total of XY would be sigma XY. That is equal to 766. Okay. So after you do all these computations, you can assign names to all these totals, right? So this is what you need to solve this. Formulas solve කරන්න අවශ්‍ය data තමයි අපි ඔය gather කරේ, right? After this is done, it's just a matter of assigning numbers to where they belong, right? අදාළ තැනට මේ number එක දාගන්න තමයි දැන් තියෙන්නේ. So let's work it out, right? So the way I have worked it out is I'm going to compute B and then I'm going to compute A, right? Okay. So before that, why do I compute B before A? Is there a reason for that? Of course there is. What A කියන figure එක හදන්න බෑ පුතා B නැත්තම්. Makes sense, right? If you don't know B, you can't arrive at the final answer for A. So what is the sequence? A හදලාද B හදන්න ඕන නැත්නම් B හදලාද A හදන්න ඕන? You have to first compute B and then you will have to go for the A computation. Please remember this sequence, right? Some guys will start with A and be stuck and be wondering, okay, why can't I fix this? So you have to start with B and then move to A, right? Please remember that sequence. Okay. Then I'm going to assign numbers here. B සමානයි. B is equal to, right? N sigma xy minus sigma x sigma y divided by n sigma x squared minus sigma x square. Okay. So what is n? So the n is the number of terms. Number of number of terms. Terms key you have this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. There are 8 rows of data, right? So how many data sets are there? 8. 8 distinct combinations, right? So n is 8 multiplied by sigma xy. Sigma xy කියන එක අපි හෙව්වා මේ දෙන්නේ 766, right? 766 minus sigma x is 96 multiplied by sigma y is 64. Whether it again, totals sigma x is here, sigma y is here, right? So you are putting the same numbers here, right? Instead of sigma x, I am putting 96, and instead of sigma y, I am putting 64, right? Divided by 8 multiplied by x squared, sigma x squared. Sigma x squared is 1236, right? So you have 1236, 1236. Then sigma x is 96 to the power 2. May sigma x කියන එකේ square එකයි ගන්න. Sigma x එකේ square එක 96, right? So 96 to the power 2. So once you simplify this, Buddha, you simplify this. You can start with 8 multiplied by 766 minus 96 into 64. You are getting minus 16 at the top. Put that to minus 16. Then the denominator would be 8 into 1236 minus 96 to the power 2, 672, right? So minus 16 divided by 672, you are getting negative 0.023, let's say. You can just round it off the way you want. So I'm just taking 3 decimal places. I just cut it off at that. Okay. So your B answer would be 0.023 negative, right? Okay. So once you are done with this, you can substitute this to the second formula, A. So A is equal to sigma y. Sigma y kiyada puta? Sigma y 64. So you have 64 here. Divided by n would be 8, pada sankhya vatai, number of terms. B would be negative 0.023. Something I have to mention here. Putame B kiyanne negative 0.023. And when you are substituting the number here as negative B, right, it becomes double negatives. Negatives dekak kiyana. Please remember this, right? Because why? Positive B is negative 0.023. B samanai negative 0.023. එතකොට negative B කියන්නේ මොකක්ද? You have to multiply this again by another negative mark, right? So then this becomes double negative. Keep that in mind. Don't get confused there. So this becomes a double negative, and this will be multiplied by sigma x is how much? 96 divided by 8. Okay. So this becomes 8, 023 multiplied by 96 divided by 8 would be around 12, right? Yeah, 12. Okay. Then you will arrive at your answer as 12 multiplied by 0.023. 8 plus the answer would be 8.276 is A. Okay. Negative and negative, positive. When you are multiplying a negative by a negative, you should remember that this becomes a positive. So this would be A plus 0.023 multiplied by 12. Okay, so that's why you get an answer greater than 8. Okay, so please be clear on the mathematical operations. These are basic things, but please be careful when you're solving this. Huh? Right. So these are your answers for A and B. Now you can substitute this to your y equals a plus bx formula. Y equals a plus bx. Okay. So now we have solved this. A is 8.276. Then B is negative 0.23 x. So instead of A and B, I am putting these two numbers here. Instead of A, I am writing 8.276. Instead of B, I am putting negative 0.23, right? So once this is done, your answer for part A is already complete. Part A ko aage already complete, right? Then for part B, calculate the expected rating of customer satisfaction if we offered 8 dishes. For the number of dishes තියෙන්නේ මේ x කියන column එකේ නේද? Right? මේ x කියන column එකේ number of dishes වෙනුවට ඔයා 8 කියන එක දැම්මොත් if you substitute 8 as your x value, what is the y value? The customer rating is what they're asking, right? Calculate the expected rating of the customer satisfaction. The customer satisfaction in this particular question is the y column, right? So what they're asking is, if your number of dishes that are being prepared or offered is 8, your corresponding y value, that is the customer rating. You can take this answer from your formula, right? මේ formula එකේම පුතා ඔයාගේ x වෙනුවට ඔයා දාගන්න 8 කියන එක. That is 8.276 minus 0.023 x වෙනුවට ඔයා 8 කියන එක substitute කරා. The x value is 8, right? That is given. The number of dishes is 8. If you solve this particular formula, මේක හදාගත්ත පස්සේ you get a y answer for y, right? Y වෙනුවට ඔයාට answer එකක් එනවා නේද? That is your what? The expected customer satisfaction rating. Y answer ka tama expected satisfaction rating. See, y is denoted by that, right? Okay. So your final answer in this case would be 8.276 minus 0.023 multiplied by 8. We are getting 8.092, something like that. 8.092 is your y value, right? So this is the answer for B. This is the answer for A, right? On A and B කොටස් දෙක ඔය විදිහට තමයි හදන්න ඕන, right? So guys, again, I sort of did it in a quick manner in the interest of time, but we have done this extensively with different types of data sets in the class. The class එකේ මේක හදලා දින එක එක විදිහකට using this method, using calculators, a direct method to get the answer for A and B. All this has been discussed, right? So what's the objective? If you can do this now, cool. You can get through the question in the exam as well. But if this is completely alien to you, can't recall the head or the tail of this subject, then definitely go back to that session and rewatch this area or refer to your whatever the notes you have, right? So be prepared with this question, all right? So yeah, this is always a guaranteed 10-mark question in your paper. So do the numbers again and again, practice it, and let's go to the exam, right? Then lastly, we have the simple probability question, right? Here, the probability of a randomly selected bottle is from plastic A. Okay. Here also, I will just give you the answer because I'm sort of overshooting. I will just give you the answer here. Then, calculate the probability that a randomly selected bottle is made from plastic A. If you select a bottle from this data set, what's the chance that it is from A? The type of plastic is A, right? So I'm going to add these columns diagonally and horizontally both the ways, right? So you have 12 plus 8 plus 6. The number of bottles correctly disposed would be 26. number of bottles incorrectly disposed would be 19 plus 5 would be 24. And the total in this way would be 17 plus 15 plus 18, right? So the total number of bottles in this case would be 50, right? Is that correct? Yeah. 2 plus 18 would be 50. Okay. So there are three types of plastics, plastic type A, B, and C. And there are different ways the bottle has been disposed. Make a recycle කරලා තියෙන විදිහ නැත්නම් dispose කරලා තියෙන විදිහ අනුව if it is correctly disposed and incorrectly disposed. There are two columns or segregations given here, right? So for part A, what is your answer? Calculate the probability that the randomly selected bottle is made from plastic A, right? Bottles ඔක්කොම කොච්චරක් තියෙනවද? 50යි. ඒකෙන් plastic A එකෙන් හදපු bottles කීයක් තියෙනවද? In total 70. 17ක් තියෙනවා නේ. This is the answer for your first one. Out of total of 50 bottles, the probability that you are choosing a bottle made of plastic type A is 17 upon 50. That's it, right? Then calculate the probability that a randomly selected bottle is made from plastic B given that it is disposed incorrectly. වැරදි විදිහට dispose කරපු plastics වලින් එකක් තෝරගත්තොත්, right? If you choose one bottle from the items that are incorrectly disposed, වැරදි විදිහට dispose කරපු data set එකෙන් or plastic එකක් ගන්න එළියට bottle එක. The chance that it is made from type B is what they're asking here, right? So how many incorrectly disposed bottles are there? What is select කරන්න දැන් තියෙන options 24යි. You don't have 50 incorrectly disposed bottles. You only have 24. So out of this set, if you choose one, it has to be what? Made from plastic B. ඔය 24 ඇතුලේ incorrectly disposed 24 ඇතුලේ B type bottles කීයක් තියෙනවද? 7. Right? So if you make a selection from the incorrectly disposed bottle, the probability that that selected bottle is made from plastic B would be 7. Right? So this is a conditional probability concept, right? So if you have a condition that is materialized already, which in this case is the fact that it is disposed incorrectly. වැරදි විදිහට dispose කරපු set එකෙන් එකක් ඔයා තෝරගන්න. Randomly එකක් තෝරගන්නේ නැහැ. You don't have option of 50 in this case, right? You only have 24 incorrectly disposed bottles. From that, if you make a selection, the probability that you end up with a B type bottle or bottle made from plastic type B is 7. Right? So if you know the probability basic, right? The basic of the probability, you can get these numbers correctly, right? So it's a matter of practice, right? Of course, the more you do questions, the more you will be versed with the type of approach you have to take, right? So please remember, probability is what? You have to divide the number of events in your total data set, and you have to decide how many occurrences are there that are assigned into your condition, right? So that is what the probability means. Okay. So simple probability, again, for some reason, it is a bit confusing for all the students. So I suggest you go back to your video and just watch the basic things, not the complicated stuff. These are the things that the examiner tests, right? There's nothing here, right? There's no conditional or maybe like additive law, multiplicative law, all this fancy stuff. There's nothing here, right? It's all given here as given in simple probability terms, right? So this is simple probability. You can score the marks if you know the basic here, right? Question number 8, past price index, guys. I'm not going to work this out. I will just give you the answer in your WhatsApp. I have to close out. But anyways, past price index is one of the price indexes that are very testable if they are going to test index numbers. Or the index numbers guys test in section B. And in all the 7 past papers, right? So the weightage or the emphasis of this topic would be relatively less. Emphasis, right? But remember, the past price index, you are supposed to weight this in the current year, right? Q1 කියන එකෙන් තමයි base කරගෙන ඔයා හදන්න ඕනේ. This is given in your exam paper, right? This formula you don't have to study. This is given. Okay. So based on this, if you are to compute the past price index, I will just give you the structure. The price in 2021 would be P1. Price in 2010 would be P0. Quantity in 2010 would be Q0. Quantity in 2023 would be Q1, right? Current year price, the base year price. The current year quantity and the base year quantity, right? This is the concept, okay? So once you define these define these columns, you can develop two columns here. That would be P1 multiplied by Q1, P1 multiplied by Q1, and also P0 multiplied by Q0, Q1, right? So if you compute these two and arrive at the answers here, let's say this is 20 and this is 30, right? Make a multiply columns total let's assume you are getting 20 and 30. So your answer here would be, the sigma values would be P1 divided by Q1 would be 20 divided by 30. This is not the actual number. You can work it out leisurely. So you have to substitute the total values to the top and the bottom because it talks about a sigma, right? එතකොට පුතා මෙතන මේ එන 20 කියන්නේ sigma P1 multiplied by Q1 and 30 කියන්නේ sigma P0 multiplied by Q1. So the numbers දෙක තමයි මේ එන්නේ. So 20 divided by 30 and you can get the past price index, PPI, the answer that is required, right? So the actual answer, you can work it out. I am just giving you the concept, right? So remember guys, whatever the price index the examiner will ask you, the formula will be there in the table. It's just a matter of knowing where you have to develop the way you are supposed to develop the answer, adding the required columns, taking the totals. That's the practice you need. So again, to remind you, in the last note, last year's price index, last year's quantity index, past price index, and past quantity index. If they ask something in the exam, highly probable that these are the stuff they are focusing, right? There could be a question from other indexes as well, but at least know these four. This would be keeping you on a safe side in your exam, right? So these are the refreshers or example questions that I have done, which are more related to your, how do I say, the exam purposes, right? So I hope this was helpful for you guys to recall certain things or just iron out certain confusions you may be having before, right? So I'm always available for you guys. You can just contact me. My number is there in the WhatsApp group, right? So you can just hit me up if you are confused with any of the concepts, right? And based on the knowledge you have and the preparation method that I explained to you, follow it in that particular manner, you can get through your exam in flying colors. This is not a tough exam, right? This is pretty easy to predict and very standardized questions, right? There won't be anything crazy that they are testing in the exam, right? So no need to worry, no need to freak out. It's a maths exam. Oh, I'm going to panic. No, none of those stuff, right? This is a very simple maths exam. Just be knowledgeable with the things I told you. You will be getting through without any issue, right? So now I will take up the questions in the chat. So what are the things that are in the chat? Let me jump to the chat. Okay. So are there any questions? You can just drop them into the chat. I will just turn off my video for the time being. Okay. Yeah, there are some direct messages, but these have been addressed, I think. So I will stick around for around 2-3 minutes. If you have any doubt you want to clarify now, you can just ask me. All right. Yes, so please send today's slides. The things we discussed, yeah, please send the slides. Yeah, of course, money, how? Yeah, the slides will be with you, not to worry. All these discussion points are there, not to worry. All right, I think things are clear to you. So, yeah, all the very best to your exams. And even if you could not phrase your question right away, I'm available so you can phrase them later on as well. Okay, so I think I will leave you guys at that. So, study hard and you can get through the exams with flying colors. Thank you very much and have a good evening.